All,
Mhm.
all right, that is what I always need to hear is recording in progress. This is Lynn Hamilton, your lead instructor here at Sampson Properties, to bring you another tantalizing and cliffhanging session of stuff you need to know. This is into our marketing mastery class. It deals with a backstory, and it's about short sales and surprises and market reality. So I've got a couple of guests that are going to be with me today. I'm super excited to have them here. Carl is one of them. And then I know Lisa's going to be chiming in because she's got some experience with short sales as well. So the first thing, again, we were just talking before we went live on air here, that so often agents come in totally unprepared with what they need to know and what they need to do to survive in this business. And so um, short sales is one of them. We're not, there's always going to be short sales, but there's not the flood of short sales like there has been in previous years in the past. Now, for those that don't know, a short sale is when the homeowner is going to be short on funds to pay off the current mortgage. And there's several reasons that that can happen. And one that we're finding pop up as well is those that have seniors that may have done a reverse mortgage. And what some families are finding is that when I'm going to use the reference of the parents have passed, the siblings now have the property according to the will slash trust, but they have found out that the reverse mortgage now owes, I'm just going to use a number for the example, the reverse mortgage is $500,000 that's owed. Because when they took it out, the property was worth 600, but now it's adjusted or settled and they can't get 500,000 for it. Maybe they can get 450 for it. And oftentimes too, the other component that comes into play is if the parents have been ill, the property has not had the deferred maintenance or the general maintenance that another property of a homeowner might have. That's very, very common. We get it. The siblings are now got this property that is basically upside down. And there have been numerous occasions where the siblings have been told, in this situation, our best strategy is to just turn the house back over to the bank. Because even with whatever cash might be available in the parent's name that would come to them, they're still going to be upside down and short. So in that scenario, yeah, that's probably a good thing to turn it back over to the bank. This family comes in, they clear everything out and turn it back over to the bank because, again, the homeowners are now deceased. They don't care if their credit's wrecked, but for the family to be able to take it on, they have to come out of pocket
For the
to get it
difference.
to sell it. That makes no financial sense. So that is coming up a bit as well. So if you're in the category of doing probate or sales after a death, that may be something that you're going to come across is, again, I'm going to use the generic parent has taken a reverse mortgage. And typically, from what I have heard and been told, is that reverse mortgages are due within 30 days of the loss. Um, that way, they want their money right away because that was the understanding when that reverse mortgage was taken. So, although a reverse mortgage is an option, it may not be, as always, their only option. And whether it is their best option or not, that's not for us to decide. Obviously, our role, if we ever came across that with somebody pre-planning, would be really understand what the criteria of that reverse mortgage is. And years ago in San Diego, I had a longtime friend of mine come to me. Her husband had gotten hurt at work and just had to retire out. Now finances were tough. And so they were going to look into a reverse mortgage. And I said, okay, pros and cons, but I want to make sure that you understand that the mortgage is under the husband's name. And when he passes, which will probably be before you do, the bank will want their money immediately. So if you are not in a position to be able to refinance in your own name and pay it, they will take the house. They will want the house. So I said, research, ask, double check, talk to the kids as well. Make sure that you are crystal clear on the pros and the cons of what that reverse mortgage can or cannot do for you, because it may bite you in the butt around the bend. And she went, oh my God, I never even thought about it that way, because again, she was getting ready to go on disability because of some injuries or illness. And there was no way that around now or around the bend, she'd be in a position to be able to refinance on her own name. So in that scenario, they decided that a reverse mortgage was not their best option under the circumstances and how it was going to play out. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind if you're dealing in that senior generation. Yes, it's an option. And here's how I always put it. Is it an option? Is it their only option? Typically, no. They have several options. But is it their best option? I'm not sure, because that's not my call to make. My call is to make sure they're getting properly educated, and then they decide whether it is in the best interest of them or not. Okay. So that is the backstory on, or a little insight, if you will, on reverse mortgages. Always, always, always refer to a lender to give current, accurate, and updated information, because things can change at a moment's notice. We are not lenders. I don't pretend to be a lender. I don't pretend to ever quote interest rates, or, people used to ask, what are the interest rates doing? I go, I don't know. What's your blood pressure doing? Because it fluctuates. So always know where your lane is and stay in your lane. If a question or something comes up, I would say, you know what? I know enough to be dangerous. I'm going to direct you to one of a couple of good sources. I would strongly recommend you talk to one or more, get the information you need. But here may be a couple of key questions that you would want to ask. And that would be about payoff, what happens at the time that the person passes, get that. So that would be my recommendation on that one. Okay, now the other thing deals with a backstory before we go on to our guests. Is one other thing that pops in is, oh, please, people, make sure that when somebody calls and says they want a list, especially if they're not someone that you know, always, I'm going to say it again, always, in case you just dozed off, I'm going to say it a third time, always check public records to see who is showing up on title. And make sure that when you go meet them, you have that printed out and you double check that, in fact, you are dealing with the owners of the property. The other reason that is a good thing to have as well, it shows your due diligence to at least get it double checked and started. You may know them as, Rob, but their real legal name is Richard Robert. They went by Rob as a nickname because of family having too many of the same names, for example. So I've seen agents do this, and I just shake my head. They go in and they hit the listing for Rob. Well, I'm sorry, Rob's not the legal name on the ownership, on the title. So always, always, always double check, print it out, take it with you, and double check that their name, first off, is correct on the title, and second off, it's spelled correctly on the title, because by chance it can be off, and then proceed forward from there. Now, we, in our horror stories of the real estate world that I usually do in October, because it's Halloween and it's fun, this happened actually with Cardinal Title. They had An agent came in and took a listing because they had been farming this particular neighborhood. They kept, so you want to sell your home? Are you ready to sell your home? Are you ready to move up? Here's what your home, the home value is in this area, blah, 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 blah. And these people decided, oh, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. So they call the agent. Agent rushes over, all excited. They're getting a new listing, doesn't do any of their due diligence, takes the listing. There's a hot market, had an offer on it within a week, got it into escrow with the title company. And the title company calls and says, the contracts list Bob and Susan. Who's Bob and Susan? Because it's Ted and Alice that are on the title. Bob and Susan were the renters. They were trying to pull a fast one. Yes, shake your head. We cannot make this stuff up. This stuff really happens. They don't teach us that in real estate school, by the way. So here we've got this fraud going, and their excuse was, oops, yeah, well, we've been getting this, their postcards for over a year. Do you want to sell your house? Do you want to sell your house? Do you want to sell your house? They knew the owners were elderly, across country, and figured they could get away with it before anybody found out about it. Can't make this up. So needless to say, we have renters that were committing fraud, a agent who now really got in hot water because he or she didn't do their due diligence, and you've got a buyer who is now midpoint in the transaction. I'm not sure if inspections or whatever had been done yet, but they're midpoint in the transaction. Find out it's not even a legal listing. Can you just say lawsuit? Let's just all go to court right now and get this one over with. The other one that was crazy was, in fact, it happened to me through the attorney that I worked with. I was given the recommendation of a client that needed to sell the house. So I go and have a consultation with her. Divorce. He had already moved out. We're prepping. Again, I'm working through the attorney like I'm supposed to be. And lo and behold, the property shows up on the market. Now, both him and her were on the loan, and both him and her were on title. She was living at the house because she also ran daycare from the house. And people came knocking on the door with their agent wanting to come in to see the property. And then she discovers not only had a lockbox been put out front without her knowledge, like the night before, but the sign was getting ready to go up as well. So she calls me, she calls the attorney. We're like, what the heck is going on here? Soon to be ex-hubby decided he and the new girlfriend, new girlfriend was a real estate agent, was going to go ahead and take the listing. It was fraudulent. They couldn't proceed forward. And I had no problem under those circumstances in throwing them all under the bus, because the co-owner still lived in the house, still ran a business from the house, and had not given permission for that to be. And I don't know if he tried to forge her signature or what, but it got ugly real fast. So fortunately, the attorney was already involved, and I just said, this is on you, take it. And she handled it from there. But gang, rule number one, always, always, always check who's on title, how is the name showing up, and are you dealing with that person first and foremost? So that happens in divorces, probate. Sometimes the parents will pass and a kid will pop up and call you and say, hey, I want to list the house. My parents just passed away. I'm the, do you have the authority? Yeah, I do. I've got the authority. No, they don't have the authority, but they're going to try it anyway. That happens more often than we want to know about. So there you go. There's that one. Another one with a backstory is parent passed away, 3 siblings. Well, mom was on her deathbed. One son went and took a signature line of credit, forging mom's name to get his quote unquote part of the inheritance ahead of time because he needed it. He needed to get bailed out of jail was what he needed. So that one got ugly real fast as well. And when it came to selling the house, that was when they found out the other sibling, the good one, found out that there was a lien on the house for a second mortgage and then tracked it back that it was the other brother who had taken it out. Oh, wait, mom was in no shape to have signed that paperwork when it was quote unquote signed, and it got real ugly real fast. So, backstory and horror stories all in one. Okay. All right. We are going to bring Carl Carrington into the conversation. He had shared a couple with me recently that finding out about during the pandemic when
Mhm.
people were doing deferred payments. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Carl. Carl, go ahead and share with us your experience and your horror stories as well.
Okay. Well, first on your some of the stories that you were telling, it's been my life experience that when there's blood in the water, there are sharks.
Ooh, good one.
When there's money in the water, there's twice as many sharks. Um, my story is what I'll call Ghost of Christmas Past. And it applies to, I think, anyone who is listing a property. You do need to ask your client if they have ever done a loan modification. If they have done a loan modification, I'm not sure what they have in Virginia, but in Maryland, there's the land records. And you can look in land records and you can see if a partial claim mortgage has been recorded against the property. Oftentimes, though, if you're dealing with a reputable title company, the title company in the first week that they have the file will let you know if there's something like that out there. If you're dealing with some company that's asleep at the wheel, they may not let you know until late in the process. And that was the case of a recent transaction that I was a part of. The client did not recall, he knew he had done a modification, but did not recall the partial claim mortgage or the partial claim mortgage amount, which happened to be $94,000 in this case. And finding out later in the process, it went from him having equity of approximately $50,000 to being underwater by approximately $40,000, and also having to change the listing, hoping that the and we had an offer on the property, hoping that the buyer would consider hanging on um, based on the change in the circumstance. Um, if you're dealing with a short sale, just know that it is a very complicated transaction. You got to have all your I's dotted, all your T's crossed, all the X's X'd, all the signatures and initials and things of that sort. And if you don't have those things, they'll send it back, and it's going to take, they have to have a wet signature. It has to be faxed to them. Who does anyone raise your hand if you still have a fax machine? Okay. And you got a wet signature, you got to fax it to them. Then they take anywhere from 5 to 7 business days to load it to their system. So it pushes these things out further and further. In this particular case, well, in general, there are organizations or businesses that specialize in short sales, and they uh, factor their payment into the transaction and they can also get you your full commission. All right. So you do have that where they're not charging you. They bake their fee into the transaction. So that's something, and again, they handle all of the communications with the bank or the servicer so that you can still continue to pursue your life and your other transactions that you may be working on. The what was I going to say? Again, checking to see if there's a loan modification, checking to make sure that you have all of the people. If they remember it, it will come up as a partial claim. Oh, and also it is held. The guarantee, yeah, guarantee is the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development in this particular case. They do not send you a statement, a bill, or anything of that sort. But when they go to sell the property or refinance the property, the note becomes due. So that's where it can also be considered a ghost or a quiet mortgage in the back there that no one knows about or doesn't necessarily remember because they haven't received a statement or anything of that sort. They signed the note, but that's the last communication that they're going to get about it. So in this particular case, the 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 buyer decided to hang on for about a month, after which they said they couldn't wait any longer and that they were yes, Denise, that you're correct. That they couldn't wait any longer, and my client gave them a release. And this was after having communications with the short sale uh, company that we were working with, that the bank had told them that they would not, there's a foreclosure date set, and that they wouldn't be able to do their processing of things within the 45 days that led up to that particular date. And we're saying it's 45 days. You can't figure it out by then, but with all of their processes, they denied the short sale.
So did
Um,
it end up going to foreclosure?
it's probably going to go to it's set to go to foreclosure the middle of May.
Got it.
Yeah,
Got it. Because I
yeah,
know that sometimes, and I'm going to ask you and then Lisa to chime in on this as well. But I remember, again, way back, if somebody was pre-foreclosure, whether it was short sale or not, if you, as I would say, the agent, communicated to the bank and
mm-hmm,
showed that you had a listing agreement, what days on market, that it's well priced to go quickly,
mm-hmm,
they being the lender, the mortgage company, sometimes would allow that grace period because oftentimes they'd rather get it sold than to take it back to have to deal with the foreclosure sale on it. So again, I'm going to say sometimes, you never want to say never and always,
right.
but oftentimes, sometimes they will communicate, you can communicate with them and they'll stall it or hold it, knowing as long as you kind of keep them posted as well
Mm-hmm,
and not leave them in the dark over
right.
what is going on. So
Right. We had a bona fide offer in this case, a VA loan, who was ready to go,
and they
and
wouldn't budge.
they wouldn't budge. They wouldn't
Oh,
budge. The client is looking at filing bankruptcy uh, to push it out and see what happens from there.
wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
see, mine that the bank wouldn't budge on, I've actually had to escalate through HUD because there's been some holdups that's been on the bank's end. And it got to the point where, okay, this is a little bit ridiculous. All the holdups are coming from your end. We have an offer. It took you 3 weeks to get the appraisal report back. You're not going, I mean, okay, so my background is before I became an agent, I was with one of those companies that handled the short sale negotiations. So I
Ah,
did did that until COVID when everything stopped. So I was like, I might as well go ahead and get my license now. So, but yeah, so I've had, and it's actually an ongoing process. And so actually getting a reappraisal done today because I'm also licensed in Ohio, and in Ohio we actually had to take a semester of college courses. So one of our courses was appraisal courses. So when the report came back and our listing was C5 and he compared it to C3 and C4 properties, I was like, this property isn't livable, but you're comparing it to livable properties. Those comps aren't fair. I was like, there's no way. I was like, we have water standing in the basement. We need a whole new septic system. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, Lisa, before you, as you continue to share your wisdom, please introduce yourself real quick to the listening audience and which office you were out of, so they've got a name to go with the voice and the face. So,
hi, I'm Lisa Jackson. I joined Samson in 2021, and I'm out of the Fredericksburg office.
very good. Okay, thank you. All right. So, what other experiences have you had with short sales that you could share the words of wisdom to anybody who thinks that it's going to be an easy, fast transaction, and any other hiccups that you've come across to just kind of put everybody on their toes?
I've only had one past transaction in life, and I've done hundreds of short sales. And everything was ready to go. It took 5 days to get it approved. But everything, I mean, they were just on it. Um, dealing with one now. I'm trying to explain to my seller that she's the only one on the actual deed. Her grandmother was a co-signer. Her grandmother now has dementia. So she's like, well, I can get my grandmother to sign the third party authorization. No, you can't. I'm like,
Not with dementia, you can't. Yeah, she has gone past that point of being cognizant as to what she's doing.
Yeah. Does not
right,
pass the capacity test.
Yes.
right. And the other thing is the partials. Like she was like, yeah, I have one loan, and then Cardinal pulled her loans, and it was like she has two partials and the water and sewer because it's in DC. And I'm like, okay. The same thing with the one in King George. He was like, I didn't know I had any other loans. I was like, you have two partials. And he was like, what's a partial? I was like, okay. Remember when you were behind on your payments and you just were doing the forbearance and you applied for the modification? I was like, this is separate from your loan. And the title company, I'm not going to throw the title company name out there because it's not Cardinal, but since we're the seller side, we have to go with who the buyers use. Was it on it? And so I asked her, I was like, do you have the payoff? And she was like, yes. It's including everything. So I'm like, it's including the partial. She was like, yes. I found out last week, no, it's not. So I'm like, girl. And
Oh,
the contact at the title company has not responded to me since last week. And I'm like, sending group emails at this point. I'm like, I need a response because I need an answer. Who did you get this information from? And who told you this? The other thing you have to be careful of is in Maryland, real estate agents cannot negotiate the short sale.
good
So
point.
I actually don't do Maryland short sales because that negotiator kicks in, or else I'll call the company I used to work for because
And
I
let
just
them.
have like that mindset that this is what needs because it's so ingrained, this is what needs to be done, this is how you do it. And I'm like, I'd rather not even deal with Maryland because I like my license. So
Exactly, exactly. So again, I think that the takeaway on this as well for someone who may be listening to this going, ooh, maybe I want to do short sales is first off, it is not easy. There is every twist and turn that could possibly come up, worse than a regular transaction. Um, and you're dealing with a handful of people that are in addition to the normal set of fingers that are in the pot on a regular transaction. So,
May I
um,
add? May I add another thing? It's my jaded view that banks look at their portfolios
yep,
and they say, okay, this is a part of the non-performing assets, but we don't want to recognize them right now. So let's say we'll do we'll do a mil, we'll do 5 million this, no, we'll do 2 million this quarter. The rest of them will kick the can down the road.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
so, and I say that because I've had cases where the person that I was working with, let's say I was working with Joe. I'm working with Joe. Joe says, "Hey, you've got everything in here." I mean, I was putting the account number on every piece of paper that I was sending them, as well as the page number on every page. Did you get all 10 pages and all for this account number? All of that. The guy said, "Hey, your package is great. It should be approved tomorrow." Okay, I'll call you tomorrow at noon. Great. I call tomorrow. Joe had a heart attack at the job, is what they told me. Okay. Now you're going to have to work with Sarah. Sarah doesn't know anything about the file. You go back to square one.
Mm-hmm.
But wait, Joe said it was about to be approved tomorrow. Well, Sarah's got to work on it now, and she doesn't know anything about your file. But I'm like, Joe, or all the boxes should be checked. Well, nope, that's not how it works around here. You just got kicked down the you just got kicked down the road a ways.
Right.
So
And
those are some of the things that happened again in my experience.
Oh, wow.
the other thing is,
So,
they'll tell you, we only check the file X amount of time every 2 weeks. And I'm like, that's our policy. It's my policy to follow up with you every week. So I'm not sure what to tell you. So I'll be calling you
right,
again on Tuesday. So
right, right.
Exactly.
They
Exactly.
just
So for those that are maybe brand new or, really new into the industry as well, way back when we had 1,000,001 short sales going on, when all that foreclosure stuff was happening as well, what had happened was the banks were unprepared. At that point, again, we're talking umpteen years ago, banks were totally unprepared. And I got this directly from a friend of mine who worked for a bank slash mortgage company that, had a load. When the offers would come in, they literally had a large room. They had tables throughout. They had painter's tape or masking tape or whatever to divide off. They'd have the property address and they would just stack the files or the offers on the property as they came in. Nobody knew what to do with them. Nobody knew how to
mm,
handle them. And
mm,
so a property would be sitting on the market for months. And then if you by chance found out, well, yeah, there's 18 offers and nothing's being done on any of them because the banks, the lending institutions didn't know what to do and didn't have the manpower to come in and do it. So they just stacked. So one of the problems that came was there was no ability in the MLS to change it because it wasn't pending yet,
mm,
but it didn't have an approved offer yet, but it was backed up in the eyeballs of the bank.
mm,
So finally the MLSs created a additional category. So in situations like this, they could change it to pending short sale approval. So at whatever point, the listing agent could then be told that he or she was authorized to change the status from active to pending short sale approval, which let a potential buyer know there's probably a stack of 20 plus offers sitting on that property. And you can turn in an offer, but get a number, get in line type thing. So that was kind of the way back when story. So now, obviously, the industry knows how to work them. I'm going to say a little bit better, but Carl and Lisa are right in the fact that there's still we only handle them once every week or once every other week, and yeah, it's not always a smooth sailing. But again, we need, as agents, need to know this so that if we have a buyer that's looking at a property that's going to have an issue, we know how to best advise them. And in the same token, if we take on a listing that we find out has a second on it from, deferred payments, and
Modification.
it's modifications, and it's 94,000. And yeah, so, that can pop up as a surprise as well, because you're right. Not everybody is walking away with hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity and proceeds. Again, depending on when they bought, when they have to sell, if there's a divorce, if there's a death, they got to sell. Now, I will tell you, as a little side note reminder, is that if somebody has a security clearance with and for their job, typically, I would like to give that little gray area. Typically, a person that is in financial straits with a short sale, a foreclosure, pre-foreclosure, cannot have a security clearance as well. Mm-hmm. So in those scenarios, when the market is doing its up, down, and that person needs to vacate the property because of a death, a divorce, or a relocation or something, they have no choice but to put it as a rental property and hope for the best until the market reestablishes itself, where they could, sell it with some equity to get out of it. But I checked with someone the other day. I was talking to them who was in a company where security clearances, everybody had one. And I says, is that still the case? And he said, yes. Because if there's financial concern, they are labeled as high risk, and are not going to keep that security clearance very long. So this is why, again, just one little piece of the puzzle that you stick in your little, briefcase in case you ever need it. They will sometimes not admit that, because you'll say, well, you can sell and do foreclosure or short sale and you're only 5,000 short. Can't have a nickel short. So, and again, because in this footprint, we have so many that are in companies that require a security clearance to be with them. You're going to come across that more here than in other footprints as well. Okay.
All right. So I'm sorry. I was going to say my client, he's a contractor. So he went and told his boss, who went with him to talk to whoever they needed to talk to. And so far, it's been good. But it's also a good idea to tell the office admin, because Miss Ashley called me the other day to see what was going on, that you're doing a short sale, because she was like, what is going on with this file? She was like, you're under contract. You raised the price. Y'all raised the price. I said, Ashley, it's a short sale. I said, that's the bank approved price. I was like, I'm trying to prove to the bank it's nothing's going to happen to this price. I was like, so we put it at that price, no offers. So we're lowering it. I was like, no offers. So was like, you're going to see this happen a couple more times till it's back down where it should be. But right now they're doing a revaluation of the valuation, which can take who knows how long. But until that happens, we're going to be reducing the price so that we can prove that it's not worth what they're saying.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Got it. Makes sense. Okay. And Carl, you had something to add in there as well?
Yes, that is that as a part of this last transaction that I was on, and talking with the short sale company, they said that this most recent, or over the last year, with the government, what do you want to call it, firings and rehirings and things of that sort, that a number of people had done loan modifications as a part of that in order to be able to stay in their homes. So there may be another wave coming in here in the next few years as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just something to definitely keep on your radar.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the best scenario, is just have it on your radar. Make sure you're dealing with who is on title, and in your consultation, whether it be the buyer side or the seller side. Obviously, if it's the seller side, ask. You have to come right out and ask. Have they, at any point in time, either during pandemic or during government shutdowns, did they do any deferred payments? Again, the assumption was that money would just be slipped right into the back end of the loan. They didn't realize it was actually being a second loan that was, separate from the initial, because it made it sound like at the time they would just stick the amount on the back end. Yes, but in its own little pocket. So when payoff was requested from the primary, you got that amount, but not realizing, oh yeah, that amount is not here. It's on its own little
Island.
island
Hmm.
over there. So great,
Hmm.
great, especially in this footprint, definitely valuable information to have on your radar, know how to ask those awkward questions because it's better. Well, it's better to ask the question and get the answer up front than to get halfway through and then get blindsided because when you ask it up front, it also sends the message to your client that you're aware of what's going on in the market. You're aware of what potentially can raise its, ugly little hand. And so you're just trying to troubleshoot any potential problem that may come up around the bend. And one of the things that I would always have the conversation during a consultation with my client was, and you've heard me say this before, may I have your permission to always be blunt and honest, tell you what you need to know and not always what you want to hear, delivering the good news and the bad news all the same. And they said, yes. I said, great, because typically, that little word, typically something is going to pop up after the home inspection that nobody saw coming. That's typically where it jumps up. So I just want you to be prepared that more than likely something's going to come up that we didn't even realize need to be repaired, fixed, or replaced. And if it didn't, I got good news. But if it did pop its ugly head, then you will say, hey, remember that day you gave me permission to be blunt and honest? Well, guess what? Today's the day. This is what surfaced. And again, no fault of anybody, but you've at least warned them. And so it made the transaction, obviously, the transaction goes much smoother. And again, it's going to make you come across like a knowledgeable agent, superstar, if you will, because you've learned to ask the uncomfortable and awkward questions as well. So, okay. All right.
I
Let me
had, I
double
had,
check. Carl, you got some more to share with us, please?
yes, Denise mentioned that she had watched a special about these loans. Was it on television or where can we find that?
Oh, Denise, yes, we want to hear
Oh yeah.
that. Denise, if you want to unmute and answer, I'd love to get you. Zombie loans are starting to become an issue. Yes, just watch a special. Yeah, Denise, are you there? Can you either answer in the chat box or unmute and let us know if you remember where you watched that special? Because that would be an interesting one to just be aware of as well.
And just so everybody knows, the pre-foreclosures are coming back. I get a list every day. In the last 2 weeks, within 50 miles of my house, there's been over 200 lease pendants, auction properties,
Oh,
and that's
wow.
in DC, Maryland, and Virginia.
Okay. And Lisa, are you comfortable in sharing with everybody where is that a subscription that you're paying for to get that list?
I used which one am I using now? I used to use the Red X, but they only do by county. It's my Plus Leads, and I do expires and pre-foreclosures for like $79 a month, and it gives you
Okay.
a 50-mile radius from your zip code.
Okay. So that is a specific target if anybody is so inclined or interested. Denise did respond back that she was having trouble with her unmute. She thinks it was on YouTube. She'll check with husband and then let me know, and I'll try to post it in the um, when I post this video up. I'll try to post it or have it in at the closing of it as well.
And
So
then I just want
okay,
to add one last thing.
sure,
Like
please.
in Virginia, we're non-judicial. Maryland and DC can sometimes be non-judicial, but Maryland is like I've talked to people like in the last week, and this lady, I went to her house, did her listing appointment. She said she was behind on her payments. I was like, how far? She was like, I haven't paid a payment since 2012. So she tells me what her balance is, but then there's $100,000 in fees. And in DC, same thing, but that she hasn't paid in like 5 years. So there's $68,000 in just fees added on top of the loan. So even though it wouldn't be a short sale, it is now.
Oh, wow. That would be a surprising announcement to,
Yeah, I was like, we
That's
don't do that in
collections
Virginia.
costs. Is that collections costs and legal fees?
Yes.
Hmm.
yeah. Wow. Wow. Denise's response was that it was something that they found on YouTube. Doesn't remember exactly, but yeah, you could probably go to YouTube and kind of do a search of, on zombie loans, um, ghost loans, partial loans. I'm sure something is going to come up. So, okay. There was another movie done way back. It was called The Big Short when the short sale market hit. I remember I watched it and I was doing some other stuff and I thought, okay, wait, time out. This is not a movie that you are sidetracked and involved in something else. It literally was something you needed to sit still and pay attention to. And, but it was a fascinating, if you will, behind the scenes and back looking forward of those people that knew that that bubble was going to burst. And I, again, going back in time, I was never a fan of that 2% interest only, um, to adjust in 5 years, or, because we had no idea what the interest rate was going to adjust to. It was during that time I actually advised a couple of clients not to purchase because I knew where they were. If it 6 months, a year and a half, 2 years later adjusted and came to full market, full interest rate, they were not going to be in a position that they could afford that payment. At which point, like everybody else did that was over their head, they had to sell at a short sale or they had to foreclose. And fortunately, and I'm humbled but yet proud to be able to say, I talked a few people out of buying. Again, I gave them their options. I gave them the information that I knew. And I said, look, I am certainly not a mathematician, rocket scientist when it comes to this stuff. All I know is my gut is telling me this is going to be dangerous. And I did not want to see them getting into a loan that whenever it was going to explode, they weren't going to be able to stay in the property. And I said, look, you need to think about it, pray about it. That was the the minister and his wife that I told them. I said, I know you're going to be praying about it. So, um, and I said, you need to make that decision. I can't make it for you, but here's my recommendation and here's why. And they appreciated it. They came back and said, you were right. This is not an option that we want. We're going to hold tight. We'll hang on. I'm going to do this, this, and this over the next year. And then we'll readdress it in a year and see where we're at. And sure enough, we waited, I think it was 18 months. And sure enough, when they were able to buy, they were able to buy solid with a 30-year fixed and was able to, lock and load and have it, rock solid. It wasn't adjusting and going to adjust at some point. But that movie, The Big Short, was interesting. You can still find it out there somewhere, but it was fascinating to kind of get how they were projecting this was going to happen. I was smart enough to know that it was. I just wasn't smart enough to understand how, why, or when. So there you go. All right. So we're always going to have horror stories and backstories on properties. We're always going to have a market where there are pre-foreclosures, foreclosures, and short sales. We now have the additional component of during the pandemic and during government shutdowns, there may have been deferred payments that was assumed it was going just into the back end of the loan when actually it was going in as a second separate loan to be paid out at the time of sale. So be aware to ask those questions. As awkward as they are, ask. It's better to ask and get the answer than to be blindsided down the road. Carl, is there anything else you want to share or add to this before we wind down? I'm getting a head shake.
Not at this time. No, I think just keeping it. Just know that it's out there. Again, we've had a number of different government shutdowns in this area. So again, people trying to stay in their homes would do whatever they could to stay in their homes, and loan modification is one of those things. So be sure to ask if it's out there.
Absolutely. All right. And thank you. And thank you for your wisdom, your insight, your experience, your integrity for always doing the right thing in this industry. I appreciate you. So thank you for being here with
Thank
me
you.
on this.
My
And
pleasure.
Miss Lisa, anything else that you want to add in closing as we wind this session down?
Yes, just know that short sales aren't for the faint of heart. It's hard.
Yes.
Like I've been working one since December. The other agent has the certification, and she's like, I have the certification. I thought we were going to be done by this. I was like, it's a short sale. I was like, I told you
Yeah,
from the start. I
close.
was like, this bank has been difficult from the start. It's going to take time. I was like, now that they're doing a reevaluation, we are finally moving in the right direction. I was like,
Yeah.
so we might be able to close by the end of May.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So would you think that having a certification in short sales in reality is a plus, minus, or an equal? Does
on
it
paper,
matter?
I think it's a plus, but like I told her when she told me, but I have a certification, but you've never done a short sale. And she was like, it's taking so long. I was like, didn't your certification tell you that? So
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Yeah, we're
That's it.
all laughing. Yeah, we're all got
Yeah.
a good giggle on that
Patience
one.
is a virtue that not all of us have.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for your wisdom and sharing with the group here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to everyone else who joined in, who listened in, who chimed in. Carl, again, thank you so much. As I say, this has been recorded. I will be downloading it and having it up on my website, lynnhamilton.samsonproperties.net, under the Agent Resource Center, the drop down box to listen and learn. I'll be posting it before I leave this afternoon. It should fall right into place. And with that, I'm going to say thank you all so much for joining us. It's always the reminder, I don't care what you know. I want to know what you're doing with what you know. And again, to everyone, if you do go back and listen to this or any of the other sessions, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because that will send you just a quick little bing notification when a new one's uploaded, which is typically on Thursdays, and keeps you on your toes as to what's happening, what the new topic of conversations have been. So like it, leave a nice comment. We don't do bad comments. And with that, you guys go be wonderful, go be awesome. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you all in our next class.
thanks,
You
Lynn. Bye.
bet. Bye for now.